May we call in the first oralist for the applicant for the appearances?
Go.
Athenian Civil Liberties Union is an organization of non-profit. It was formed in 1920.
Your appearance agent.
I'm the applicant of I'm petitioning for freedom of information.
How many minutes will you be speaking?
15 minutes or more. The mission of the purpose or mission of the union is to defend and preserve the rights and liberties of the individual, which is guaranteed by the Constitution and laws of the Republic of Armenia. Indeed, Athenian is a support it on civil liberties, rights and civil liberties, and other laws pertaining to the liberties. Athenians law, the CLU, try to eliminate the discrimination against women and homosexual and homosexual then and birth adoption. Then throughout the years, Athenian impeached the activities pertaining to the civil liberties.
What are the issues raised by the applicant agent?
My issue is about information, the unconstitutionality of the freedom of information, with because it's against due process. The violates due process of law. The first element of due process.
There are actually two types of due process. We have a procedural and substantive. So what kind of due process was violated by that?
Substantive. Substantive in a sense that
Before you proceed, what is substantive due process?
substantive due process is the law itself, how to apply the law to the people, or what is the law, or the law itself. Then why is substantive due process law? Because the freedom of information is the void for vagueness.
Before you proceed further, agent, does the applicant suffer any injury with respect to the implementation of the national identification system?
As a citizen of the Republic of Aratinian, the applicant
the applicant is the Aratinians Civil Liberties
Yes.
Union. So what right of this union was violated by the implementation of the national identification system?
right as a citizenship and taxpayer. Then why? Because as a citizen of the Republic of Aratinian, they have the right to petition for the unconstitutionality of the inner freedom of information on the ground that the law itself is a void for vagueness.
Agent, do you know the requisites of judicial inquiry? Like before you can raise a question with respect to the constitutionality of a law, there are certain requisites that have to be satisfied.
There are 4 requisites of judicial inquiry, such as actual case and controversy of the controversy. Second, there must be a proper party. Third, there must allege at earliest time. Then, fourth, the constitutionality must be lismuta, the case. Then,
So who is the proper party?
we are the proper party for the ACLO. As a concern of the ACLO is a proper party to forfeit the constitutionality of the one.
So the ACLU is suffering an actual and potential injury because a party who has a legal standing must suffer an actual injury.
As a citizen, we try to observe the freedom of information. Freedom of information can could weaken the national security of the Republic of Argentinian, since freedom of information.
So you are anchoring your argument on the possibility.
Of the
So you mean
freedom of information.
there is no injury yet, agent.
But the possibility, it must be.
But one of the requisites is that there must be an actual case or controversy, and that the proper party must suffer an actual or potential injury.
According to
And even if you claim that this law violates the right to privacy of an individual, how? Is there an existing violation already?
I just bypass no violation for the privacy, but there's a violation for due process of law.
No violation for
Privacy.
privacy, but one of your arguments was that the national identification system
Yes.
violates various laws which protect the right to privacy of an individual.
On the other hand, ID system violates
So, I am confused, agent. Is it your contention that the national identification system violates the right to privacy, or it did not violate?
yes, privacy.
Okay, so discuss on that. Why did it violate the right to privacy of an individual?
Because when you observe the law, you can see that all personal information about a certain person must be on the ID card.
So what are these personal information, agent?
So the name, birth certificate, address, and blood type, and other pertinent information.
So, like for instance, agent, revealing your name to the public, that's already a violation of your right to privacy,
No,
or your age for that matter.
but the state can use it to include the privacy of the individual. There's an encroachment of privacy of the individual because of personal information. Then the vagueness. Let me proceed to my one. The bug because the freedom of information is a great vagueness. Why? Because when you observe the law, it's
Agent, are you discussing on the identification system or on the
freedom of information. So when you observe the law, there is no penalties. So according to the case of the Republic of the Philippines versus Del Prado, the terms offense must be explained sufficiently explicit to the subject of it in order to know what what will be the conduct, to render penalties. So when you observe the freedom of information, there's no such thing as penalties. So how can you if there's a violation about freedom of information, how can you uh, provide penalties in which the law itself did not provide for penalties? So,
Agent, the Constitution itself provides for the right to freedom of information.
yes, but we know that all laws provided penalties. For example, when there's a
So you mean the National Identification System law can be declared unconstitutional just because it does not provide penalties?
freedom, I'm talking of the freedom of information.
Yes, the freedom of information. Information itself is a constitutional right. It's under Section 7 on Article 3 of the Constitution.
Yes, but still it is unconstitutional.
Yes, I want to know your ground for why is it unconstitutional? What's your argument?
Like as mentioned, it will include the privacy of the individual.
Okay, so you discuss on that argument that it violates the right to privacy of the individual.
So why it will include the individual rights? Because we
Well, the National Statistics Office, they have personal records also with respect to information of citizens.
yes, pero
They have the
I'm focusing on Governor. I'm focusing on freedom of information.
Yes, we are focusing on the freedom of information. And it is your argument that it violates the right to privacy of the individual. Is it?
No, Your Honor. No.
So
And-
it does not violate the right to privacy.
Yes. Yes. If yes, if
So
you
what makes it unconstitutional then?
like I said a while ago that it is void for vagueness. Then it violates also the equal protection clause.
Talisik.
So what's void for vagueness?
Void for
What's that
vagueness
concept?
is the opposite of overbreadth or the law itself
How
is
do you
Rata ka dun.
distinguish
Ako rata kay Senggol.
Overbreadth is a broad cannot apprehend the ordinary intelligent man, while void for vagueness is a opposite of broad that it is lack of sudden or not properly made or just there's a lack of the law itself. So anyway, so
Tadi mo yan.
why it's called equal protection clause? Because when you see the four requisites or four essential requisites of equal protection clause, there's no substantial distinction. I'm focusing on journalists because in the law stated that journalists must free for 100 pages every year. I mean 100 then how
So
about
in other words, the law favors
journalists?
more.
Oh, so how about the reporter? Does the report when you say report and a journalist is the same, or the objective of the both is the same, because they all they all broadcasting news or they are all public figure. So there's no distinction, substantial distinction. Both of them, then the law is not equally applied to all the same belong to the same class. So we know that journalist and reporter is same class because their objective is the same. So
But the freedom of information agent covers matters which are of public concern. Have you read the law itself?
yes,
Right? It covers matters of public concern. And the Constitution provides that every citizen has the right to freedom of information to matters which are of public concern. So the freedom of information provides this. So if that's the case, then it is consistent with the Constitution. So what's your stance on that?
so still
It's just your time's up. Do you want to ask for an extension?
may I ask for
30 seconds.
30 seconds.
Wrap up your arguments.
So to summarize, the information is the freedom of information is related the procedural due process and equal protection clause because they did not the law itself was not able to observe or fail to observe the requisites of the equal protection clause and due process. So that's all. Good afternoon, Your Honor.
Proceed.
Yeah, Miss, Your Honor, I would like to aside for at least 15 minutes on my submission for my arguments, Your Honor, at least 5 minutes for our rebuttal. I would like to, if there aren't any questions, Your Honor, may I proceed from the first argument? Your Honor, I would like to for my first submission, Your Honor, I would like to state my grounds on the national identification system that why it is unconstitutional because first, Your Honor, it violates all grounds of first, it violates various laws. Second, it violates various laws. Second, it violates the equal protection laws of the Constitution, Your Honor. But the first ground, the violates various laws because it is stated in the Constitution, Your Honor, that
What laws are these, agent?
the Constitution states that the essence of the Constitution states that
So it violates the Constitution.
in the essence, Your Honor, the right to privacy was violated.
But it was your argument that it violates various laws.
Yes, Your Honor.
So what laws are these?
Thank you for that question, Your Honor. The concerned laws are the Bill of Rights, Section the 1987 Constitution, Bill of Rights, Section 3 and Section 2. Also, the international law, which we can implement the doctrine of Pacta Sunt Servanda, which provides that in the United Nations Declaration of Human Rights in the Section 12 provides that no one shall be deprived of privacy, information, or any other rights. Section 2 of the Constitution, Bill of Rights Constitution, Your Honor, provides in the essence that no unreasonable searches or seizures shall be given by a certain individual, and also it provides in Section 3 that the right of privacy shall not be violated by anyone. with this, Your Honor, the national ID system has given crucial information to the public, and also it gives the
But are you also aware, agent, that the right to privacy is not
it's not an absolute right to take for the thank you for that answer, Your Honor, but it is provided, even though it is not provided the absolute right, but it's stated in the international law that every right should be respected, especially in section 1, that there should be equal protection to each individual, such as no deprivation of no.
So your first argument, agent, is that it violates the right to privacy, right?
Yes, Your Honor.
And your second argument is that it violates the equal protection laws of the Constitution. So I'd like you to discuss first on the national identification system violating the right to privacy before you proceed with the equal protection laws.
It violates I beg your pardon, I'm not also referring
You discuss, because your first argument is it violates right to privacy.
privacy.
So discuss first on that argument.
The right to privacy, even though Your Honor, is not an absolute right, but it is coherent with the essence of the case of the jurisprudence of Oakley versus Torres, Your Honor, that Oakley versus Torres, Your Honor, that even though the absolute right is not even though the right to privacy is not absolute, it should be respected because it is written under the Constitution, provided it's stated in the essence of the Constitution, especially stated in the Section 2 and Section 3 of the Bill of Rights. That is why certain violation of the right to privacy is the violation already of the rights of an individual, provided that the individual is not a public figure. The equal protection clause, Your Honor, is violated because one of the elements of the equal protection clause is that it provides that there should be no distinction between classes. One of the elements, Your Honor, in the equal protection clause is that the law must not create any distinction between classes.
So the national identification system,
Provide, because in the essence, Your Honor, the national ID system gives a distinction between a certain class. When a class does not apply to
what class?
as a citizen, Your Honor,
So it makes distinctions as to
classes, Your Honor.
it makes distinction as to classes of citizens.
In the essence, Your Honor,
No, it's yes or no, agent?
yes, Your Honor, because in the essence, it
Well, how
provides.
did this law make distinctions?
In the base of the law, it does not give any distinctions, Your Honor, but
So what's your basis?
by given the fact that an individual cannot apply for a certain, cannot avail the national ID system, the individual can never attain the benefits that has given out that they can obtain from the national ID system, such as applying for a university, applying for an SSS card, and even for the renewal of the ID system, Your Honor.
But there are processes that has to be observed, agent, right? In
Yes.
order for a citizen to avail of a national ID.
Yes.
So can you discuss what the process?
The process, Your Honor, was not stated in the case of the law, Your Honor, because it's just stated that by the delegation powers of the.
Are you sure the law itself does not provide?
It provides only, but it only provides that the NSO and the DFA shall be given the task to give suspend or obligation, Your Honor. But given the fact that the regulation in applying such IDs in the ID is free from each citizen, Your Honor, by providing 6 months upon birth the citizen should already, upon birth, the citizen should already apply for the national ID system. And then upon 10 years of renewal, he should have filed, he should already file for renewal of the ID.
But don't you think, agent, it's beneficial to have this law because it can help resolve crimes, like it can prevent crimes, because you don't know the identity and information of the individual. Don't you think that's advantageous?
Thank you for the concern, Your Honor. But in the case of Rwanda, in the Rwanda case, 1995, there was a genocide that happened because of the national ID system. Because of that, in the case, Your Honor, the national ID contains a keyword which is their ethnicity was stated in the national ID. By finding such kind of keyword, specifically speaking the two lists, the government, the rebels of the government of Rwanda, who can kill all the citizens that already have been stated in their national ID or their ethnicity. So it provides danger to the life of the individual by stating their classification or honor, because as one of the rights stated in the rights of the Bill of Rights, Honor, the Constitution should provide in strictly speaking section 1 of the Bill of Rights that should provide no person shall be deprived life, liberty, and property. Are there any further questions?
Proceed.
I would like to proceed on my second submission, that the national identification system provides governmental abuses. My first claim is stated that the national ID system provides for disoccupation of funds, because, Your Honor, by giving such kind of obligation to the government, the government will take some monies from the public funds and use it in order to create the ID freely for its citizens. But for us, it is an inappropriate action, Your Honor, because there are things that are more important rather than giving the national ID, because it is already redundant, Your Honor. Because
Agent, would you agree with me that the implementation of this law is the exercise of a state's police power?
yes, Your Honor. Thank you for the question, Your Honor. Yes, Your Honor, but it's provided that the elements of the police power should be given that what it is, there should be a legal subject and then the legal subject. Provided that the police power should be given by the legal subject and legal matter, but given that it is stated in the law that the law mandates that all citizens should apply for the national ID system in order to further.
But you agree with the agent that this is an exercise of a state's police power?
Yes, Your Honor.
And between the right of a state to exercise police power and the rights of individuals, which has more weight? Or how do you strike balance between the two?
Thank you for the question, Your Honor. I think the government should implement the government should exercise the police power as long as it would benefit all the citizens, Your Honor, because public welfare should always prevail over the government action. That should be the prime concern of the government, Your Honor. On my second claim, Your Honor, it states that Your Honor, may I ask for an extension for at least 2 minutes? Because I can sense that I only have
You still have time.
And my second claim, Your Honor, is that it states that there is
What is the purpose, by the way, of the national identification system?
it's stated in the law, Your Honor, that the consolidate that it provides the unification of, in its essence, it provides unification for all ID systems, all the, provides for the identification of every Atenean, Your Honor, for unification of all IDs because it can be used as consolidated and consorted to all individuals that has already past governmental identification, and for the future it will consolidate all the IDs, making it only one national ID system. On my second claim, Your Honor, it does not give any assurance that it will eradicate the red tape bureaucracy in the government, Your Honor. Because the mere fact that filing for an application for a renewal, or even the fact that you are trying to obtain a document, the law does not give any assurance at all that it can speedily hasten the process of given the individual the documents that he needs from the government. The law only states that it wants to consolidate and concerted consolidate all past IDs into one. But it also provides in the explanatory note, Your Honor, that what the law is trying to make is that it would eradicate the red tape bureaucracy. But stated in the facial value of the law, the law does not provide any assurance at all that it can eradicate the presence of the red tape bureaucracy. Red tape bureaucracy is one of the biggest problem here in our country, because
What's red tape bureaucracy?
filing for the prolonged process of filing for the document is very procedural and law delay for obtaining the document you want to take from the government, such as your live birth, your live birth and all other public documents that you would like to obtain. I would like to discuss the ACLU legal study on I would like to
30 seconds.
in the ACLU, Your Honor, we have the petitioner ACLU, Your Honor, provided that you have been that Your Honor has already been informed that the case has transcendental value as based on Oposa versus Pactoran. The case of bar has a potential future matter that will involve giving the future Argentinian citizens that could endanger their life because it contains crucial information, Your Honor.
May we hear from the first speaker, from the respondent?
Ubus. Sa ubos. Sa ubos. Sa ilalong ba? Ilalong.
Good afternoon, Your Honor. May it please the court, my name is Isela Alcalci, and I'm appearing for respondent of the Republic of Manila with my co-counsel, Colleen Guatero, and of co-counsel, Melody
Lubot.
Your Honor, my consideration will require 15 minutes, while that of my co-counsel will require also 15 minutes, and we would like to reserve 5 minutes for the rebuttal. Your Your Honors, I should be considering two main points. First is the act establishing the Arabian identification system that does not constitute a curtailment of an individual's right to privacy, and that second is that the freedom of information as an essential and integral part of democracy, while my co-counsel, Colleen, will be discussing elaborately that the Freedom of Information Act is, as it is strengthened by the fundamental law of the land and under the state's obligation in the international law. Your Honor, before I begin my argument, I would like to ascribe a few points that were brought up during the petitioner's argument. We have that the first, that endangers national security, that the NIS or the National Identification System violates the law that protects the right to privacy, and that the redundancy of the national ID results to the misappropriation of the public funds, and that with regards to the violation of the due process of the law. If Your Honors have no preliminary question, I should proceed to the first section. Thank you, Your Honor. Should the Republic of the Arakanay upheld the constitutionality of the national identification system, the right to privacy is a guaranteed right and warrants that information obtained by authorities will be protected against interference. The National Information Card, known as the Arakanay Identification Card, can actually be used, Your Honor, in public and private transactions, which will serve as an efficient tool in upgrading the speed and quality of public
Agent, would you
service.
agree with me that the national identification system is an intrusion to the privacy of an individual?
Your Honor, I would not agree to that claim, Your Honor. Because the right here, the law provides the balance to protect also the right to privacy. It does not give an absolute right, because they provide exact balance also to protect, especially on the Bill of Rights, it's provided in the Constitution, Your Honor, wherein the law does not speak on the violations of the rights of individuals, for it actually safeguards also and prevents the risk even of the abuse of authority, as it is stipulated there in the law in Section 12, Your Honor. This also includes three important grounds: that the information used to establish identity and the authenticity data. Second, that it also provides
But
the national
if it's not
security
an
reason.
intrusion agent, this law actually gives access to government personal information of an individual.
Your Honor.
This law actually gives the government information with respect to an individual. So we do not consider that as an intrusion.
Your Honor, the law provided thereof that there are specific exceptions and specific grounds wherein the freedom of information can be assailed or can be asked
So
for.
where are these exceptions?
It is in the, sorry, exceptions. It is in the exceptions provided here that I'm not really familiar and with all the exceptions. But it is provided here in the exceptions of Section 5 that the following shall not be included in the scope of giving the freedom of information. One of these is the information specifically authorized to be kept secret under the guidelines. This also under this are the privileged which are included in the privileged communications, and those that are those that are distributed as orders, resolutions, and other memoranda.
So
Which
the privileged communication is an exception to the general rule that
that the citizens have the right of the freedom of information and to inquire of the public accountabilities
are we
of the
talking of
government.
the identification system law agent or the freedom of information?
the freedom of information, Your Honor.
Because
Sorry, this is the national ID system, Your Honor.
so the exceptions you mentioned are the exceptions to the right to privacy. The exceptions you mentioned, those were the exceptions on the general rule of.
I'm sorry, Your Honor. The exceptions, sorry, Your Honor. The exceptions provided here on the national identification card are provided in. Sorry, Your Honor. I mean, Your Honor, because if it talks about the intrusion of the right to privacy, it does not the government or the lawmakers does not actually provide information also that is that can actually cause impairment to the citizens, because the informations provided here are only basic informations that are given.
So in other words, the law provides for limitations.
Yes, the law provides for limitations, yes, Your Honor.
But would you agree with the agent that this national identification system law is vulnerable to identity fraud?
Your Honor, on the identification card, the national identification card system, actually, yes, it may be subject to. Sorry, Your Honor. Identification card system actually is different from the other cards. That's why the lawmakers intend to make this, because they provide this identification system to be against fraud, and also they provide it in the for national security reasons, that this ID system can actually